Welcome back. Today we're looking at the last footage of people's moments before they were fatally mauled by wild animals. From a tourist who stepped out of a safari vehicle for a selfie with a lion, to a snake expert who underestimated the venom of the very species he had studied for decades. But first, we begin with a shark captain who baited sharks to get tourists the perfect photo. It was July 16, 2022, and the afternoon was hot on Florida's Gulf Coast. Tourists filled the busy marina looking for fishing trips, boat rides, and wildlife tours. Alaric Voss was 34 years old and owned a small charter boat. Just 2 years earlier, business had almost collapsed. Fuel prices had gone up, tourists were choosing bigger tour companies, and Alaric could barely afford to keep his boat. Some weeks, he had only 1 or 2 customers. He fell behind on his marina fees and even thought about selling the boat. Then a visitor asked if there was any way to see sharks up close. Alaric took the customer to an area where sharks were sometimes seen, and by chance, a shark appeared. The visitor posted the photos online, and within days, other tourists began asking for the same experience. Alaric realized he could earn far more money by offering shark photo trips than regular sightseeing tours. At first, he simply looked for sharks in areas where they were known to swim, but waiting for one to appear often took too long. After talking with a few local fishermen, he started bringing fish scraps on every trip. Once he stopped the boat, he threw fish scraps into the water, letting their scent drift with the current and pull sharks toward the area. The idea worked. Sharks began appearing much more often, and happy customers shared their pictures online. Soon, most of Alaric's bookings were for shark photo tours instead of normal boat rides. I think about how desperation works like a slow drug. It loosens all your safety rules one at a time until you can't remember why they existed in the first place. As the months passed, Alaric wanted every customer to leave with an even better picture than the last group. He began asking tourists to sit along the back of the boat with their legs hanging just above the water while he photographed them with sharks swimming nearby. The trips became popular. After dozens of successful shark photo tours without anything going wrong, Alaric slowly stopped seeing the routine as dangerous. Over time, sharks in the area began arriving more quickly whenever boats stopped and fish scraps entered the water. Bull sharks are among the few shark species able to live in both saltwater and freshwater, and they can travel far up rivers. They are curious predators with strong senses that help them detect movement, vibration, and the smell of food, especially near the surface. Alaric had conditioned these sharks to come when called and feed near humans. He wasn't managing danger. He was creating a predictable scenario where danger would eventually respond. One afternoon, during another shark photo trip, a large bull shark appeared while Alaric was still tossing fish scraps into the water. One guest wanted the shark to look closer in the picture. Wanting to impress everyone, Alaric laughed and said he could get the shark much closer. Ignoring the worried looks from a few passengers, he tossed another handful of fish scraps into the water, leaned far over the stern, and reached his hand toward the surface to get the shark's attention. The bull shark had been circling beneath the boat, pulled in by the scent of fish scraps drifting on the current. It suddenly surged upward from just beneath the surface, jaws open, and mistook Alaric's moving hand for food. Its teeth clamped down hard on his forearm as it thrashed, dragging him toward the edge while the boat rocked and blood spread fast across the water. Passengers screamed and scrambled back as Alaric fought to pull free from the shark's grip. 2 guests grabbed his life vest and pulled him back into the boat, while another pressed the towel hard against the wound to slow the bleeding. A third passenger sent out a distress call over the VHF radio, giving the marina's coordinates and asking for help. Alaric had lost a lot of blood by the time nearby boats reached the scene, and the crew fought to keep him conscious as they raced back to the dock. Paramedics met the boat at the marina and rushed Alaric to the hospital, but the injuries to his arm and the blood loss were too severe, and he was pronounced dead a short time later. Investigators later found that Alaric had deliberately attracted sharks by throwing fish fish scraps into the water before asking tourists to sit at the back of the boat for close-up photographs. They concluded that the repeated use of bait and the decision to lean over the stern while sharks were feeding created the conditions that led to the fatal attack. Alaric built a business model on making animals predictable, and then he made the final mistake. He forgot they were still animals. The next person I'm going to tell you about also didn't understand that confidence isn't the same as safety, but her confidence came from a different place entirely. It was August 16th, 2021, a warm afternoon at a safari park in Tanzania. The sun was high and everyone stayed inside the tour vehicle watching the animals. Trees filled the park and animals roamed freely inside the enclosures. Oceane Vasquez was 26 years old and loved doing risky things. Since she was a little girl, most of her friends were boys, and she always joined their games, climbed trees, jumped from walls, and took every crazy challenge they gave her, wanting them to see her as strong and not weak. Deep down, she felt they looked down on her for being a girl, and she always felt she had something to prove. A few months earlier, Oceane tried a backflip off a one-story building because her friends had done it. She broke her ankle and spent weeks at home unable to walk. The pain was bad, but what hurt more was her friends no longer asking her along, telling her to stay safe. She wanted them to see her as fearless again. When her ankle healed, she looked for something to rebuild her confidence, so she joined a safari tour, her first ever, hoping to return with pictures that would impress everyone back home and give her the confidence she felt she needed. The guide gave one rule before they set off: nobody should leave the vehicle for any reason because the animals were wild and could attack without warning. Oceane nodded, already thinking about the closest picture anyone had ever taken. Oceane didn't break the rule because she was reckless. She broke it because staying inside felt like admitting she was afraid, and she couldn't stand that feeling. Deeper in the park, they spotted zebras, giraffes, and elephants. Then a large male lion resting under a tree, calm with its eyes closed. People quietly snapped pictures through the windows while the guide reminded them to stay inside. Suddenly, the vehicle stopped after the driver felt something under one tire. The guide looked through the front window, speaking into his radio to report it. Everyone leaned forward toward the front. Oceane sat alone in the back seat near the rear door, away from the others, and with nobody watching, she quietly opened it and slipped outside unnoticed. She walked toward the lion barefoot on the dry grass, heart racing. It still looked sleepy. Lions can sprint in short bursts near 50 miles an hour when chasing prey, and even a sleepy one can react within seconds, which is why wild lions are never safe to approach. She smiled and waved at it like a pet, crouching about 20 feet away, taking selfies, then a video, creeping closer step by step for a better shot, imagining her friends finally respecting her. Oceane left the vehicle in that split second when attention shifted. Seconds later, the guy turned and saw Oceane was missing. His face turned pale, spotting her near the lion. He banged the window and waved his arms quietly, afraid noise would startle it, while other visitors pointed and panicked without shouting, scared that would provoke it faster. Oceane only smiled and kept filming. Sure, everyone was overreacting, and she wasn't afraid because a post online told her that lions only attack those who ran in fear. Then everything changed. The lion opened its eyes and stared straight at her. Oceane realized her mistake and turned to run, but her legs shook on the uneven grass. The lion burst into a sprint, closing the gap in seconds, and knocked her down from behind with great force before anyone could act. The guide told everyone to stay inside and locked every door while radioing for help because opening them would only add more danger. Rangers arrived fast in a truck and fired shots into the air to drive the lion off her before medics could reach her. Her injuries were too severe and she died right there despite every effort to save her. The park shut down for days while officials investigated how she left the vehicle unseen. Her family arrived 2 days later, devastated and unable to understand why she opened that door. Counselors spoke with the other visitors, many of whom could not sleep for weeks after watching it happen. The park added new locks and alarms to every door so nobody could exit unnoticed again. Oceane's friends later said they never wanted her to prove anything, they just wanted her around. But by the time they said it, she was already gone. The person I'm going to tell you about also believed a beautiful place was worth the risk, but he didn't have an audience or a camera. He just had a notebook and a need to see something well, nobody else was seeing. It was October 15th, 2023 at a national park in Uttarakhand, India. The afternoon was quiet at a wildlife reserve. Visitors stayed on the safe paths and enjoyed the beautiful forest, viewing the animals and taking the pictures they came for. Wendell Bush was 31 years old and worked in a factory. He rarely missed a day because he needed the job to help his parents and pay his bills. His life was simple. He woke up early, worked long hours, went home tired, then did it all again. The one thing that made him feel alive was nature. Trees, rivers, birds, and wild animals made him forget every problem. He loved drawing what he saw because he believed a pencil captured feelings a camera never could. His love for nature often made him do foolish things. More than once, he quietly left work during lunch just to visit a flower garden before returning as if nothing happened. One winter, he even called in sick so he could climb a mountain during a blizzard just to see snow covering the trees, and nearly froze to death before rescuers found him. Everyone thought that day would change him, but it did not. He still believed beautiful places were worth the risk. One morning, workers at his factory suddenly stopped because of an unexpected strike. Wendell saw it as the perfect chance to visit a wildlife reserve famous for its Bengal tigers. He packed a notebook and pencils because he wanted to sketch the view with his own hands and afterwards take pictures. After arriving, he followed the main trail with the other visitors. The guide reminded everyone never to leave the marked paths because the tigers were wild and could appear without warning. Wendell listened, but he was already thinking about finding a better spot to draw. Wendell wasn't chasing beauty. He was chasing the specific beauty of proving the rules didn't apply to him. While walking alone, he noticed the damaged service fence, knocked down during a recent storm, leading into a restricted tiger habitat closed to visitors. Warning signs told people to stay out. Wendell had heard online, through a blog, that the gap led to the best view in the whole reserve. He smiled, decided the rules were stopping people from seeing real beauty, and squeezed through without telling anyone. Not knowing where the view would start, he brought out his phone and started recording as he went in. Another visitor saw him leave the trail but lost sight of him among the trees. The forest grew thicker and quieter, sunlight barely reaching the ground. Wendell thought he had found the perfect place and wrongly believed the tiger would be resting far off. Bengal tigers are quiet hunters with sharp eyesight and hearing, able to hide in tall grass, move almost silently, and reach near 35 miles an hour in a charge before anyone notices danger. A few steps later, he found and recorded the remains of a freshly killed deer, blood and torn fur scattered on the ground, the smell thick in the air. He paused, but told himself the tiger had already eaten and moved on, then stepped over the remains and kept walking deeper. When you find evidence that danger is real and active, that's your moment to turn back, but people usually interpret it as proof they're close to something worth seeing. Wendell saw a fresh kill and moved toward it instead of away. Then the forest went completely silent. The birds stopped. Even the wind seemed to vanish. Wendell finally felt afraid, but before he could turn back, something shifted in the tall grass only a few feet from him. A huge Bengal tiger stepped out slowly, eyes locked on him, watching, tail low. Wendell froze, remembering he should not run, but fear took over and he turned to escape. The sudden movement triggered the tiger's instinct and it charged, closing the distance in seconds, knocking him flat, biting into his neck and shoulder. It then dragged him deeper into the forest and finally devoured him before anyone on the public trail even knew what was happening. Hours later, the other visitor reported seeing Wendell leave the trail, and rangers began a search. They found his notebook, phone, broken pencils, and scattered drawings near the fence. Officers secured the area to confirm the tiger had moved before search teams went in, then recovered his body and the video recording. They eventually had to shut down the habitat while investigators examined everything. Wendell had a vision to capture, but crossed a line because something on the other side seemed more important than the rule itself. The next case is about someone that thought love would be enough. She was corrected in the harshest way possible. It was September 10th, 2017. The afternoon was bright on the game reserve in Eastern Cape, South Africa. Visitors stayed behind strong barriers and watched the animals from a safe place. Isolde Merrick was 28 years old and worked as a cafe attendant. She did not earn much, but she spent almost all her extra money buying food for stray dogs and cats. Her small apartment was always full of rescued animals. She believed every animal had a kind heart and that love could fix fear, pain, and anger. Her friends admired her kindness, but many also worried because she trusted animals too much. Her love for animals started when she was a little girl. She often found lost puppies and hungry kittens near her home and carried them back to safety. As she grew older, that caring heart never changed. One day, she tried picking up a hungry stray dog, but it bit her hand. Even then, she refused to blame the dog. She told everyone it only attacked because it was hungry and scared. She never stopped helping stray animals after that. I've watched people with big hearts convince themselves that their love translates to all living things. And it's beautiful. The problem is that wild animals don't understand kindness the way humans do. They understand survival, territory, threat. Her belief became even stronger over time. Once she even tried taking someone else's pet because she honestly believed she could give it a better life. The owner called the police and the problem was peacefully settled. Isolde later apologized, but deep inside, she still believed animals always understood love better than people did. For many years, she dreamed of seeing elephants in the wild. She saved money little by little until she could finally join a wildlife tour. She was excited for weeks before the trip. She promised herself that nothing would stop her from meeting the animals she loved so much. She packed her bags with a big smile, believing it would become one of the happiest days of her life. The tour guides explained the safety rules before everyone entered the viewing area. Many were videoing the experience. They warned the visitors to stay behind the barriers because elephants were wild animals that protected their families. Everyone listened carefully except Isolde. She believed she understood animals better than most people. While watching the herd, Isolde noticed a young calf that had wandered only a short distance away while the rest of the herd fed nearby. She smiled and thought it looked lonely. She remembered how frightened stray animals often looked before they accepted her kindness. She believed this baby elephant only needed gentle love too. When you decide you know better than the people whose job is to keep you alive, you've already made the real mistake. The physical one is just what comes after. A guide immediately told her not to go closer, but Isolde noticed a narrow maintenance gate that had been left unsecured while workers were off on break. Thinking it was harmless, she slipped through before anyone could stop her. She could not see the baby's mother because the mother elephant was feeding behind thick bushes nearby. That made her feel even more confident. She slowly walked toward the calf with her hands stretched out, hoping to touch it. The moment the mother saw someone standing near her baby, she reacted fast. Elephant mothers stay close to their calves at all times and rarely wander far. They communicate through low rumbles humans cannot hear and can sense danger from a great distance using smell and sound alone. They quickly defend their calves from danger and may charge without warning. They are fast, powerful, and impossible for a person to outrun. She spread her ears wide, lifted her trunk, gave a loud warning call, threw dust with her trunk, and charged with incredible speed. Isolde froze. She tried to run back toward the barrier, but it was too late. The mother elephant reached her within seconds, knocked her to the ground, and trampled her. The guides rushed everyone to safety, while park rangers worked quickly to drive the elephant away from the area. Sadly, Isolde passed on from her severe injuries before help could save her. After her death, investigators confirmed that the elephant had only been protecting her calf. The park reviewed its safety procedures, secured the maintenance access gate, and added stronger warning signs around the viewing areas. Rangers also used Isolde's story to teach visitors why wild animals should always be respected from a safe distance. Her family remembered her as a kind woman with a big heart, but they hoped others would learn that kindness alone cannot change the instincts of wild animals. Isolde saw a wall between her and what she wanted and decided love gave her permission to cross it. The next person didn't need a wall. He made his own rules and fed the very thing everyone told him to fear. It was March 2nd, 2021, at a safari camp in Kenya. The night was quiet and cool near a wildlife reserve. Stars filled the sky, tents scattered in distant locations, and only the sound of insects could be heard. Leif Hawthorne was 30 years old and worked for a company that made camping tents. He was not rich, but he enjoyed his job because it let him travel to outdoor events. One day, the company gave workers one of their camping tents as an employee appreciation gift. Leif thanked them and took it home. It stayed inside a cupboard for more than 6 months because he always found an excuse not to use it. Then one hard day changed his mind. Leif was the kind of man who always wanted answers. If someone told him not to touch something, he wanted to know why. If people warned him about danger, he wanted to see it for himself. His friends laughed and called him the question machine because he never stopped asking things. A few years earlier, he had found an abandoned gun in a field. Instead of reporting it to the police, he fired one shot just to see what it felt like. Someone nearby reported the gunfire and police arrested him for possessing the firearm without permission. He was later released, and the experience became another reminder of his habit of ignoring safety warnings and taking unnecessary risks. His home life was not peaceful either. Earlier that same day, he argued with his mother. She wanted him to stay at home until he saved enough money for his own place. Leif believed he was old enough to live his own life. Angry words were said, and he left the house without saying goodbye. He packed a free tent, some food, water, and a few camping supplies. He booked a legal campsite inside a wildlife reserve where visitors were allowed to camp only in designated areas. Rangers warned everyone that hyenas sometimes wandered through the campground after dark, and that all food had to be stored properly because wild animals could smell it from far away. He cooked dinner as the sun went down. When he finished eating, he looked at the leftover meat. Instead of storing it safely, he tossed it a short distance from his tent because he did not want to carry the trash.
I think people who test warnings are usually testing themselves, not the warning. They're angry or restless, and they use danger as proof they're still in control.
A little later, Leif heard strange sounds outside. It almost sounded like people laughing. He smiled because he knew that was how hyenas sounded. Most campers would have stayed inside the tent. Leif did the opposite. He grabbed his phone and started recording. He tossed several small pieces of meat toward the hyenas to keep them nearby while he filmed. Then, he picked up one last piece of meat and held it in the air, hoping the animals would come closer for a better video. The first hyena stepped into the light, with its eyes shining because of the food he initially threw. Soon, several pairs of glowing eyes surrounded the campsite. They ate the meat on the ground, then stayed close instead of leaving. Hyenas have one of the strongest bites of any land mammal and can crush large bones with their powerful jaws. They rely on an excellent sense of smell to find food, especially at night, and should never be approached or fed by people. Leif stepped backward, but the movement made them come closer. His hands shook, and the phone nearly slipped from his fingers. Every time you feed a wild animal, you're not building friendship, you're building a problem. One hyena lunged for the meat still in his hand. He tried throwing the remaining meat far away, hoping they would chase it instead, but the hyenas remained focused on the campsite where they expected more food. This exploded into a food fight. He turned to run toward his tent, tripped over a rope, and fell hard onto the ground. As the remaining meat fell nearby, several hyenas rushed toward it. In the confusion that followed, the animals eventually got to Leif, and the situation then quickly became dangerous. Leif's frightened cries filled the night. Campers in the distance heard the noise and called for help, but the attack happened too quickly and from many different angles. Wildlife officers and emergency workers reached the campsite as fast as they could, but Leif had already died from his injuries. His mother was heartbroken when she received the news. Investigators found no evidence of foul play and concluded that Leif's death resulted from a tragic wildlife attack after food attracted the hyenas to his campsite.
The last person I'm going to tell you about didn't have anyone warning him. He had thousands of people encouraging him, and that turned out to be far more dangerous.
It was on May 21st, 2016, at a mountains trail in Tennessee. The forest was quiet that afternoon, and the air felt calm. Birds called from the branches, and nothing seemed out of place. Ansgar Lindqvist was 25 years old and worked as a fitness instructor. He also filmed videos online every day, chasing a small but growing following and dreaming of becoming a full-time creator. Every new video had to top the last one. Likes and comments gave him a rush he chased. If followers dared him to try something, he found it almost impossible to refuse. He believed one huge video could change his life. Ansgar did not have an easy childhood. His parents split up when he was small, and he spent long stretches alone while other kids played together. As he got older, he craved attention. The internet became the place he truly felt noticed, and even praise from strangers made him feel like he mattered. That feeling slowly became something he could not live without. His followers dared him to chase a personal record by bench pressing 330 pounds. Ansgar took the bait, though his body was not ready. During the lift, he tore a muscle along his ribs and possibly damaged the cartilage holding one rib in place. The pain grew sharp whenever he twisted or breathed deeply, and his doctor ordered weeks of rest. Ansgar agreed at first, but soon grew anxious his audience would forget him. His views were slipping, and followers kept asking for the next stunt. Ansgar's rib was literally broken, but the fear of being forgotten was a different kind of pain that seemed worse. Then a follower dared him to hike alone and film a funny wildlife clip. He seemed thrilled, thinking it could pull in new viewers. His ribs still ached when he moved fast, but he brushed the pain aside. He grabbed his phone, a bottle of water, and a small backpack, telling nobody where he was going. He wanted the footage to shock everyone. Deeper into the woods, he kept narrating to his camera, joking and acting fearless for the lens. After a long stretch, he spotted a large, dark shape resting near a fallen log. He froze and studied it. It was a big male black bear asleep in the shade, its back turned away from him. The breeze carried his scent off to the side, so it had not yet noticed him. For a second, Ansgar thought about backing away. Then a different thought crossed his mind. If he startled the bear on camera, the clip could go viral. He glanced around, saw no one nearby, grabbed the thick branch, and hit record. The camera lens isn't a shield, it's a distraction. When you're focused on framing the shot, you stop seeing the actual danger in front of you. Ansgar edged in far past the safe distance until the branch could reach the sleeping animal. His pulse raced, yet he kept grinning at the lens as he tapped the bear gently. Nothing happened, so he laughed and tapped it again, expecting it to bolt in fright. Instead, the bear snapped its eyes open. It raised its head, rose onto all four legs, huffed hard, and lunged forward in warning. Ansgar's grin vanished. Black bears typically avoid humans, turning aggressive mainly when cornered or startled. He stumbled backward across the uneven dirt in a panic. Feeling boxed in, the bear charged. Ansgar spun and tried to sprint away, but his sore ribs slowed each stride. He shouted for help, but no one heard him. The bear closed the gap in seconds and knocked him down before he could react. Hours passed before another hiker found the phone on the trail. After watching enough of the clip to grasp what happened, the hiker called emergency services and led them to the spot. Wildlife officers secured the area first to confirm the bear had moved on before rescue teams pushed further into the trees. Rangers eventually located Ansgar. He had already died from his injuries before help could reach him. The area stayed closed while teams tracked the animal responsible.
Ansgar only wanted to be famous, to be seen. If he had taken another path, he might have been heard by the world. Fame comes with a price, and I think he paid his.